A great common question that I get is, why did you become an entrepreneur? And the long answer is that I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur since a very young age, maybe 9, 10, 11, 12, I don't know, somewhere in that time frame, pre-adolescence. I had this imagination that I wanted to start a business. In fact, I played like I had a business, like I would get little, pencils and erasers and stickers, and I'd set up a general store in my bedroom, and I would try to sell the stuff to my mom and dad and my brother and whomever else came by the house and had a dime or nickel in their pocket. So I've always wanted to be a entrepreneur. Fast forward, so this would have been in the 70s and 80s, but fast forward to late 80s, I graduate high school. And of course, in the 80s, 70s, up to the 80s at least, you were told that in order to make it in the world, you needed to go and get a business degree or get a college degree. In my case, it was a business degree. And I went to business school, got a bachelor's degree, and I'm just going to let you know, I am not a great student when it comes to test taking and memorization. It's just not my forte. But when I went on and got my master's and my doctorate, I did really well because my forte is actually in writing and expressing myself and creating things. Even though I was a business student, I really had a creative mind. So, okay. I get this business degree. I had an internship when I was in college where I worked for a top tier consulting firm in the space of human resources. And I had as one of my customers that I worked directly with the head consultant with, I was kind of an analyst, was one of the largest medical companies out there. They provided medical procedures and so forth. I'm not going to say what it is, but they were a huge corporation, billions of dollars, and they had a name that you would recognize. So what I learned is that I had to wear a tie and a suit, and I had to travel every week. And it was exhausting because I was living out of a suitcase most of the time. So I had this really crappy um, apartment that was over an hour away from work when you count in the traffic time in the Tampa Bay area. I lived in Tampa, Florida. I lived in North Tampa, but I worked over on the west side of Tampa near the airport. So if you know anything about the Tampa Bay area, you know that I had a trek. I was up near Busch Gardens, if you know where that is, and the University of South Florida, and I had to travel all the way over past the airport, almost heading toward Clearwater. So if you look at a map, you get an idea. It took me over an hour. I was usually in my car for an hour, hour and a half. What I learned from that experience, even though I was getting paid pretty decent for a job, because I took that on after my internship, I took that on as a paid job. What I learned is it was miserable. I had to drive. I was in my car, anywhere from 2 to 4 hours a day. So that was, burning fuel. And of course, back in the early 90s, gasoline was, relatively inexpensive compared to 21st century. But still, I drove a Ford Explorer 4-door. So it was a big vehicle and it was a gas guzzler for that time period. Even though gas was probably around $1, 50 a gallon, it was still pretty expensive in my mind because I had rent and electricity and all those other things, the bills to pay. I was miserable. And what I learned is that I really wasn't cut out for consulting work. And well, we came to this mutual agreement that I was going to go do something else. So in the interim, I had to pay bills, so I ended up taking on part-time work and basically worked for a temp agency. And I ended up at a software development company, and this was an up and coming company. They built engineering software. It was a really great experience. And I ran the office, and it was a, husband-wife team, which, is a good thing and a bad thing sometimes. It was a great experience. But I ran the office and I was the office manager. And I found out that really there was this deep passion burning inside of me to start my own business. And I didn't know what I would start or anything. So fast forward a few years, I went through some personal turmoil and I ended up leaving that software company. But in the midst of that turmoil, ended up going back to the software company and I stayed there for about a year. And then I had a friend, husband and wife team that were starting a high tech company and they wanted me to come on and run the office. And it was really ground floor, early stage, no seed money. It was really flying by the seat of your pants. And during that time, it was really challenging. And ultimately, we had to, uh, dissolve the company, even though we didn't want to, because it was a great concept at the time. I ended up going to work for another company in the Tampa Bay area, and I basically did bookkeeping and landscaping. During that time, I was dating somebody and we went on a date. We were going to this place where you painted pottery. And I was checking out, paying for what we did and our time there at the studio. And next to the register were these glycerin soaps. And the one that I happened to pick up, it looked like grass blades and the thing smelled like grass. And it was really neat and everything. And I had seen glycerin soaps around because I'd been in Bath and Body Works and other stores like that. And I said, huh, I bet I can make this and sell it. Not knowing anything about the personal care product business or anything, I that idea just would not escape me. And so, long story short, the beginning of 2000, I ended up getting married to that individual, who I later was no longer married to, but that's another story. We started a company called Nature Soap Dish. And I have to explain to you that in 2000, when we launched that business, I launched it as an e-commerce business. It was an online store. We had zero customers. We had zero product. And there was no social media at the time. YouTube didn't even exist. And so we basically set out to learn by the seat of our pants how to run this business. And so uh, we learned through the series of hard knocks. So we started this business in a 900 square foot apartment. All I had was a computer. I made the website. At the time, Microsoft had this product that you could buy where you could create, websites. And then I had a web host. And so we bought the domain name and the rest is history. And we ended up struggling and struggling with this business. And it was very labor intensive. Long story short, I ended up hiring a business mentor, and part of that mentorship, I had to be a member of a mastermind group, which was a group of other business owners. It was probably the best thing I ever did, even though it was quite an extensive, cost to me up front, and it was costly every year. I think at that time it was like $500 to $700 a year to be a part of that membership. And anyhow, we ended up having our products featured in Redbook magazine, and we were in Vegan Times, and our products appeared on QVC as a complementary to another product that was being sold. Our products were being sold all around the world. They were in gift shops from Key West all the way up to Maine. Our very first customer was a bed and breakfast where we sold 1 ounce soaps. My point in all of this is it was extremely labor intensive. We were spending, between two of us, we were spending 70, 80 hours a week. And, the cost of the materials and packaging and all of that was very expensive. And so it took us a long time to, break even, and we were exhausted. We ended up selling that business. And when we sold the business, I went and got on to get my master's degree. And it was at that point that I decided that I wanted to figure out a way to make money using my knowledge, using the skills that I had, but also using a passion that I had within me to help other people because I did have this deep passion. For a while there, I had thought about becoming a therapist or a counselor. And that was something that I chose not to do along the way. But here's my point. Long story, isn't it? If you want to start a business, there's nothing wrong with doing something that you have to use your hands or physical labor to do. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're looking for a way, especially as a side hustle to get started and then move into it as a full-time job, or I wouldn't call it job, a full-time business, what I would recommend you do is consider starting a membership business. Now, what I want to do is I want to share my screen and I want to walk you through why, um, or I want to walk you through a job versus a membership business. Now, we're going to make some general assumptions when we're looking at this business. And I'm looking down at my other screen here. So if you see me looking away from the camera, you know what's going on. We're going to make some general assumptions here. We're going to assume that you're making, let's say, $20 an hour. I think the average right now for most people is like 18. Let's just say you're making $20 an hour and you work 40 hours a week. Now, if you just work 40 hours a week at $20 an hour, that is $800 regular pay. Now, the subtotal for that is 8, and then there's 176 in taxes, which means you're going home with a little over $600 a week. Now, some people pay you biweekly, so every 2 weeks you get paid. So you're looking at $1,248, $1,248 every 2 weeks. Now, let's assume that we're heading into the time frame where there's overtime that's required, because most companies don't request or ask if you can work overtime. What they usually do is say it's mandatory overtime. So let's say we're in the holiday season and they make you work 10 hours of overtime. So now you're working 50 hours a week. Now, as you know, you get paid time and a half for those hours. So the 20 hours time and a half would become $30 an hour, right? So you should be making $300 addition. So that means your subtotal now for that week is $1,100. And of course, the government wants $242 of that, and that's $858. You get where I'm going here? Now, if you happen to have some benefits for yourself, let's say that each payroll you're having another $150 taken out for things like insurance and so forth. So your $150 is coming out. That means that you're taking home that week $708 for 50 hours of work. You understand? That's kind of basic. You can only work so many hours in a week before it's not only against the law, but physically impossible. So let's look at a membership business, what we could get into with a membership business. Now, on a membership business, you have to assume that you're charging a monthly rate for access to your membership program. I want to go ahead and assume that now most people will say $25 to $50 is a good starting point. You need to do your homework if you're going to start a membership business. I'm going to assume that you're charging $50 a month for a member. Now, let's assume that you have this really great program and you're going to need a website, and you're going to need Zoom or some other product to meet with these individuals on, and you're going to need a domain name and so forth. So let's say that your expenses broken down every month are around $150. Okay. So that means you're in the hole $150. That means that you need to have uh, 3 members to break even. Okay. But let's assume that you have 50 members. That means that you're making $2,350 a month. Now, remember I said you only have so many hours in the day. The cool thing about a membership business is you don't need to work 40, 50, 60, 80 hours a week. Now, in the early days, you may work 20, 30 hours, maybe 40 hours a week as you're getting started because you're having to figure things out and you're doing this all on your own and you're doing research. But let's assume that you're spending 15 hours a week on your membership business, your business. That means that you're making $156.67 an hour. $155.67 an hour. Your revenue, this is income after expenses, is roughly $23.50. Now, keep in mind, I'm not talking about how much you're getting paid. I'm not talking about your taxes or anything, because if you're going to run a business and you're running it as an S Corp, C Corp, LLC, all of those have different taxation stages. There's also a difference in how much you're going to be paying out of pocket if you're, covering yourself fully on insurance. So all of those are things that you're going to have to figure out what is the income you need every month to pay all your bills, because you may have a mortgage or you may have rent, car payment, you need to pay your utilities, you pay your car insurance. You get the idea. All of that needs to be built into what you need. You need to go into starting a business with knowing how much you need to get started. Now, if you're starting as a side hustle, that number, you need to figure out what is that that's going to be supplemental. And one thing I did not mention is in the expense field here, you may need to figure out how much you're going to spend for advertising each month. Now, there are different equations that we can talk about of how you determine how much of each sale needs to go towards advertising. I think a safe number is 10 to 20%, but again, you need to do your research. But let's just do some more discussion here. Let's say that you are growing your business, and this is not unheard of. If you have a great product or service, remember, this is just a membership business where they are a member. Like, I have the Founder Circle where you go and you get training and coaching, and it's a group community, and there's tools and tips, and all of that is in there, and you pay one fee for access to all of that. So let's say you are building out your program and you start gathering up more customers. So now you're up to 100 customers a month, but you're still paying, let's say, 150 in expenses. We're going to assume that at this time that we're not paying for any advertising. Although you're probably going to spend a couple $100 a month on advertising. So if we wanted to, go into argument's sake, let's say you're spending $400 total in expenses, a couple $100 of that is going into your advertising. Now, the more you grow, the more your advertising expense might be. But again, your expenses are staying stagnant. They're staying, stationary. Your revenue, and you're only working 15 hours a week. Nothing has changed. Now your hourly rate is up to $300. Now let's say that you are at a point where you have 300 members. Again, your expenses are pretty stationary. Your revenue is 14,000 a month, and you're still only working 15 hours a week. You can choose to work more or less, but your hourly rate keeps going up. And of course, as you increase your membership, your revenue goes up, your expenses are probably going to go up still, but let's say they're only going up to $600 now, and you're still working 15 hours a week. You get where I'm going with this. There's only two ways that you can well, there's three ways that you can increase your revenue each month. One is you increase the membership rate, which is possible. Some people might say, we're doing so well, and now I want to maybe increase it. Or you may decide, let's do this. You may decide that you're going to offer another level of membership, and this level is going to be the VIP level. And in order to get to that, they are going to spend $99 a month. And now you have 100 people. And for this one, it's going to cost you $200 to run. And instead of 10 hours, well, let's say you're going to work 10 hours there and 5 hours here. Now you're making $34,000 a month. So you can increase your membership rate either by adding another tier or increasing it. The other way you can do it is by increasing the number of people that are members. And the other way that you can increase your revenue is by decreasing expenses. But because we are already keeping expenses relatively low, expenses usually become a moot point. My point in all this is I have 500 members at $50. I have 250 members at $99. And look at that, I'm making almost the same revenue on each tier. That's $48,950 a month. It's almost 50 grand a month. That's what, 60, excuse me, $600,000 a year before any taxes come out. Again, I'm not talking about taxes because I don't know what your tax rate is. All of this to say, when you look at the power of time leverage, you have a product or service that people need. Why did I start Maximum Change? It's because I struggled starting my own business, and I made 1,000, if not a million, mistakes before I hired a business mentor and joined a mastermind, a group. And so I saw this value, and I am passionate about helping people succeed. And so what I am trying to say to you is there's got to be something that you have knowledge in, you have skills in, something that you're passionate about, something that maybe people ask you quite often, how do you do this? There's absolutely no reason why you can't start a membership business. Now, there's other pieces to a membership business that you can add on as you go, whether it be training courses. They're either standalone where they, add on to them. You have to buy them separate, or they're part of the membership package. In the case of my business, you can access the training platform as part of the membership. There's, you can do webinars and training sessions that are separate. You can sell digital products. You can sell physical products in a drop ship format. If you go to my website at MaximumChange.com, you see all of these really cool different options you can use. The idea is to start with one idea, start simple, and then start building. So if this sounds like something that you would like to maybe connect in with and get more information on, go to my website, MaximumChange.com, see what's going on there. We are, taking members right now, and so it'd be really exciting to have you there. Would love to hear from you. I would love to get your questions. Go ahead and be sure to click that like button. Please follow us. And by all means, turn that bell icon on so that you can get notices when we put out other great content. I'm Philip. I'm your business mentor, and this is how you run a online business, a membership business, and I'd love to help you start your own. See you soon.
Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and follow us buttons.